Hello, Cadre 3. This is another video. This is entitled Developing a Philosophy of Leading, and it's actually a shortened version of something we did earlier. And I want to bring it to your attention again because we're going to start working actively with this probably in the next couple of days that we meet, as well as from here on out. We're going to be spending some time with this. A philosophy of leading is very important to you because it's the way you begin to define the leadership that you want to give and the leadership that you're relative to your intentions, and it's a way of bringing an alignment to what you intend to do and what you actually do. It is a philosophy of leading, not a philosophy of leadership. Leadership has to do with the position you hold, but may or may not involve leading. But leading is the active part, the part that you actually do, and it may or may not have anything to do with having a leadership position. So we want to talk about a philosophy of leading. First of all, what is a philosophy? Well, it's a number of things, and if you look at the PowerPoint that goes along with this, that's on Blackboard as well, I think basically it's probably three things. One, it's a system. It hangs together. It has a start and an end, and basically it all fits and aligns and so forth. It's a system of some fundamental assumptions and beliefs, things you believe about yourself, things that you believe about leading. And it's basically, though, a system of the values you intend to use as you exhibit your leadership and behave in ways that are relative to the responsibility of leading in the positions that you have. If you had to define philosophy, I think the words discipline would be part of it. It's the discipline that you want to hold yourself to when you lead. Those of you who criticize other people for their leading being inconsistent, one time they do this, the next time they do that, and so forth, it's basically because that person doesn't have a discipline related to a philosophy of leading, because what you want to achieve in leadership, in leading, is that when certain circumstances are the same, the way that you lead is the same, and that people begin to be able to predict how you're going to lead before the issue even comes up. It's kind of like the times when you observe people, or you know and you speculate about how they might respond, and you can basically say, well, I knew they would act in that way. I knew they would do that. That's the kind of discipline that we're talking about in terms of a philosophy of leading. Doesn't mean that you don't change, but it does mean that there is a predictable part of the way that you go about this. So a philosophy of leading is a theory. It's your theory. It's the way you intend in terms of your activity and your thought, and the way you intend to behave when you are in this process of leading. And so this philosophy of leading is a system of thought. And it means it just didn't come out of blue sky. It's ideas and attitudes and values and behaviors. And it's a basis, it's come from some research, some reading that you've done, some conversations you've had, some workshops you've gone to, observing other people. It's something that you've spent some time with. So it's a system, it's systematic. It becomes, in fact, a statement of the discipline that you intend to use. I think the most important part about this philosophy of leading is that it's present-based and it's active. That's why it has to be a philosophy of leading, not a philosophy of leadership, because they tend to be stagnant, fixed, and not so present, or at least future oriented. So your philosophy of leading is your system about what and how you think, your attitudes, your ideas, your beliefs, your values, and those kinds of things that become a theory of action for you as to how and what you might do in your leading. There's a mental model that's on the website, or the PowerPoint that's on the website, that has to do with beginning with an idea. It goes to attitudes, goes to goes to beliefs, then goes to values, and then behavior, meaning that certain ideas can begin to change the way you behave by first changing your attitudes, then changing your beliefs, then changing your values, which will eventually change your behavior. Well, the problem with that is that's not the most effective theory of action, at least as a standalone in terms of your leading, because often thinking about changing your behavior really doesn't result in much different. And if it does, it takes a long time for it to do that. Usually just reading one book doesn't change much. It may change how you think, but it's likely not to result in much in the way of changing your behavior. Let me give you the best example I can think of. New Year's resolutions rarely change the behavior of the person who makes them. You decide you want to become more physically fit. You want to lose weight, and it's an idea that you have and you've been thinking about it, but it has to go through this process of changing your attitudes, changing your beliefs, changing your values. Then it will change your behavior. However, if you really do want to lose weight, the best thing for you to do is to get up in the morning and say, I'm going to go walk, I'm going to go run, I'm going to lift weights, I'm going to exercise, and then you begin to do that day after day, and eventually you work yourself basically backwards through that process, because one of the things is you'll start saying is, why am I doing this? Why am I getting up well, because I want to lose weight, I want to be more physically fit, and that's a value conversation with yourself. And so the key in a philosophy of leading, no matter whether you start with an idea and go all the way around to get to a behavior, you're going to go through the town of values. Or if you start with a behavior, the first thing you're going to encounter is your values. Why am I doing this? And so the idea of a philosophy of leading is it gets all this stuff kind of on the same page. It gets it all aligned so that you actually end up going both ways. Change your behavior that works your way backwards from values to beliefs to attitudes to ideas, and you go, oh, this is good. Or I want to change my behavior, and I've done a lot of reading and I've done a lot of thinking, and it's starting to change my attitudes, my beliefs, then it changes my values. Once it changes my values, it is in fact going to change my behavior. So you can do one way, ideas to behavior change, or behavior around to changing your ideas, but the best philosophy of leading is a little bit of both, and you can do both. But the key to it is the values. Until you get to values, behavior is really not going to change. Or if you behave in a different way, if it doesn't impact your values and you're not asking yourself, why am I doing this, and come up with a reasonable answer, it's not likely to be sustained. So when we think about a philosophy of leading, creating this discipline, creating this system, it has to be something that you eventually get written down. And it's